I can't even look at it. This single number on the page. It just erases all the work, all the late nights. It feels like a final judgment. Like the teacher is saying, "You're not good enough." And the worst part is, I'm starting to believe it. What do you even do when that happens?
Most students in that moment feel exactly what you feel. Shame, a kind of quiet panic. And their first instinct is to either hide the grade or to punish themselves for it.
Right. I just want to forget it exists. Or I tell myself I need to study 10 times harder, lock myself in my room, which is basically the same as punishment.
That sounds reasonable, but what if the problem isn't the grade itself? What if the real problem is thinking of the grade as a final judgment?
But it is. It's a score. It's an evaluation of my performance. It's a fact.
It's a fact, yes, but a grade is not a verdict on your intelligence. It's not the end of the story. It's just data. It's information. And it's actually very, very useful information if you know how to read it.
Useful? It feels destructive. It makes me feel like quitting the course.
And that's why most students get stuck. They react to the emotion the grade creates, not the information it contains. We think the challenge is to get a better grade next time, but the real challenge is to recover from this one, right now, in a way that makes you stronger. And it starts with separating the feeling from the fact.
Okay, I can try. So if it's not a judgment, what is it?
It's a map. It's a map that shows you exactly where you took a wrong turn. And our job isn't to get angry at the map. Our job is to read it.
A map to my mistakes. Great.
Not just your mistakes. It's a map that reveals the gap between the effort you put in and the result you got. And closing that gap is the single most important skill a student can learn. There's a simple process for this. The first step is to stop thinking like a student who has failed and start thinking like a doctor.
A doctor? What does that have to do with anything?
When a patient comes to a doctor with a problem, the doctor doesn't blame the patient for being sick. They don't get emotional. They perform a cold, professional analysis to understand the cause. They do a diagnosis.
A diagnosis? So I'm supposed to be a doctor for my own bad grade?
Exactly. You look at the test paper not with shame, but with clinical curiosity. You don't ask, why am I so bad at this? You ask, where, specifically, did the points get lost?
I know where they got lost. The parts I got wrong.
Go deeper. Was it a specific type of question? For example, did you lose all your points on the essay questions but do well on the multiple choice? Or was it about a single topic? Maybe you understood everything except for one chapter.
Okay, I see. So it's not just I failed the test. It's I lost most of my points on Chapter 3, specifically the questions that required a calculation.
Now you're thinking like a doctor. You're moving from a general feeling of failure to a specific, solvable problem. Was it a memory issue? You knew the formula but couldn't remember it? Or was it a concept issue? You remembered the formula but didn't know when to use it? Or was it a time issue? You knew what to do, but you ran out of time.
That's actually a really useful way to break it down. When I think about it, it was a concept issue. I knew all the definitions, but I couldn't apply them to a new situation. So my diagnosis is a weakness in application.
Perfect. See what just happened? The problem is no longer I'm a bad student. The problem is now I need to practice applying concepts. That's not a personal failure. That's a technical problem with a technical solution.
That does feel different. It feels smaller, more manageable. But what do I do with this diagnosis? I can't give myself a better grade.
No, but you can take it to the person who can help you fix the root cause. This leads to the second step, which most students are terrified of, talking to the teacher.
Oh no, that's the worst part. I don't want them to think I'm complaining or making excuses, or that I'm asking them to change my grade.
And that is exactly what most teachers expect students to do. That's why the traditional way fails. A student comes with a complaint. I studied so hard, I don't understand why I got this grade. The conversation becomes about defending the grade.
Right, it becomes an argument. I want to avoid that.
But you won't be doing that. You have your diagnosis. You're not going to the teacher to complain about the result. You are going to discuss the gap you discovered, the gap between what you thought you understood and what the test showed you understood. There is a name for that gap. It's a discrepancy.
A discrepancy, a difference between my effort and my score.
Exactly. You approach the teacher not as an unhappy customer, but as a research partner. You don't say, why did you give me a bad grade? You say, I've reviewed my test and I see a pattern. It seems I understand the definitions, but I struggle to apply them. My score shows this discrepancy. Could we talk for 10 minutes about how I can practice that skill better before the next exam?
Wow, I would have never thought to say it like that. It sounds so much more professional. It sounds like I own the problem.
Because you do. You're not asking for points, you're asking for advice. You're showing them that you took their grade seriously, not as an insult, but as feedback. You've done the diagnosis, and now you're asking for their help to confirm it and suggest a treatment. No teacher in the world will say no to a student who approaches them like that.
It's true. It changes the entire dynamic. The teacher becomes my ally, not my judge.
And you will likely learn something crucial. They might say, yes, many students struggle with that. The key is to focus on the practice problems at the end of the chapter, not just the summary. They give you the missing piece of the puzzle.
So I do my diagnosis, I talk to the teacher to understand the discrepancy. That all makes sense. But then there's the next test. The fear is that I'll just make the same mistakes all over again.
This is where the third step comes in, and it's where most students fail again. They tell themselves the answer is to just study harder.
But isn't it? If I failed, I must not have studied enough.
Was it really a lack of effort, or was it that your effort was aimed at the wrong target? Studying harder with a broken strategy is like trying to open a locked door by pushing harder. It doesn't work. You don't need more force, you need the right key.
So my old study method is the wrong key.
Precisely. The third step is to create a new, concrete action plan. Not a vague promise, but a blueprint for what you will do differently. And it has to be something real, something you can see and measure. It has to be tangible.
So study harder is not tangible.
It's the least tangible goal you can have. A tangible plan sounds like this. My diagnosis showed I have trouble applying concepts. My teacher suggested I focus on practice problems. Therefore, my new plan is to spend 50% of my study time reading and 50% of my time doing practice problems without looking at the answers first. I will do this every Tuesday and Thursday for 1 hour.
That is incredibly specific.
It has to be. You need to know on any given day whether you are following the plan or not. You can't measure studying harder. You can absolutely measure, did I do my hour of practice problems on Tuesday? This is how you build a better system. You don't just hope for a better result. You design a process that creates it. Then you just have to implement that plan.
So the 3 steps are diagnosis, conversation, and blueprint. Analyze the problem like a doctor, talk to the teacher like a partner, and build a new, tangible study plan, a blueprint that I can actually implement before the next test.
Exactly. It moves you from victim to owner, from shame to action.
This all sounds very logical. It makes a lot of sense. But I have to be honest, there's still a voice in my head that says, what if I do all this? I do the diagnosis, I talk to the teacher, I implement a new plan, and I still get a bad grade. What if I'm just not smart enough for this subject?
That is the real fear, isn't it? The fear that the failure is permanent, that it's about who we are.
Yes. If this process is so good, why do even smart, hardworking students still sometimes struggle?
Because this process isn't just a one-time fix. It's a loop. It's a skill. Every time you face a setback, a bad grade, a confusing project, a difficult class, you get a new opportunity to run this process. And every time you do it, you get a little bit better at learning. The goal isn't to never fail. The goal is to get better at responding to failure.
So a good student isn't someone who never gets a bad grade?
A good student is someone who knows what to do with a bad grade. They see it not as a wall, but as a staircase. This ability to recover, to bounce back from difficulty and become stronger, has a name. It's called resilience.
Resilience? I've heard that word, but I always thought of it as something you either have or you don't.
Not at all. Resilience is not a personality trait. It's a skill built from a process. The process we just discussed, diagnosis, conversation, blueprint, is how you build academic resilience. It's a muscle. The first time you use it, it feels weak and awkward. But with practice, it becomes your default response to any challenge. You stop fearing bad grades because you know you have a system for handling them.
So the system is the point, not getting a perfect score on every test.
The system is the point. Your grades will go up and down, that's normal. But your ability to learn from those moments is what determines your success in the long run. It's the difference between a student who is crushed by a bad grade and a student who is focused by it.
So when I get a bad grade, the first thing I should do is not panic. The first thing I should do is a calm diagnosis of what went wrong, looking for patterns.
Exactly. You gather your data. Then I should use that diagnosis to have a productive conversation with my teacher, focusing on the discrepancy between my effort and the result, not on complaining.
You clarify the problem with an expert. And finally, based on all that new information, I build a new, tangible study plan, a blueprint, that I can actually implement before the next test.
You take informed action. The entire process builds resilience. It's a cycle of learning that turns a negative event into a positive outcome.
A bad grade isn't a verdict. It's data. It's the start of a process. It feels less personal now. It feels like a problem to solve, not a reason to feel ashamed. I have a plan.
And a plan is what changes everything.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. We hope that conversation felt useful. If there's a specific challenge or a topic you're facing in your studies, let us know in the comments. We read all of them, and we'd love to hear what you want to think about next.